ईश्वरं सुता श्रीमन् पूर्वा सन्ध्या.
Hi, I'm Megan Davis and I'm with Shusara Kumara, and this is Conversations with Shusara. And I'm going to start off actually with just a little bit of a story, and then I'm going to ask a question as well as give a quote that I think is really interesting and very fitting for what we're going to be talking about. So what I have noticed is that more so in the past week or so, that people are feeling inundated by work, and they're starting to be very concerned with things that they're predicting or projecting will happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't realize it, but it's creating this inner turmoil, and they're driving themselves crazy based upon these images that they're creating about the future, these expectations and attachments that they have to what's currently in their life right now and what they want for themselves in the future.
Okay.
So I had the pleasure of speaking with someone very dear to me, and a question that came up was, what is it that prevents people from living to their full potential? And I thought that was a very interesting question, and something that does need to be addressed for the time. And really thinking about that question, a quote came.
Okay.
And the quote is by John Burroughs, and it is, "A man can fail many times, but he isn't a failure until he begins to blame somebody else."
Oh, I just shared that on Facebook, didn't I? Yes, I did.
So keeping in line with that question, I thought it was very fitting because I've always felt that there are all these things in my outside world that are preventing me from hitting my full potential. And I would always look out and get confirmation from people in my life or people that I might have come across or anything that might have, shown me different or shown me that, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then another quote your quote that you shared on Twitter was, "People come to me all the time saying they just want their pain to end, and then they fight to defend their pain to me. Ego needs the pain." So then I was thinking, what is preventing myself or anyone else from living to their full potential? Could it be then that the ego can only operate to prevent itself from reaching its full potential?
Oh, beautiful.
So
You don't need me.
I was just wondering if you could kind of touch on that, because that is a struggle for everyone. We look at all these things that we want to achieve, what we want for ourselves, what we want for other people, whether it's materialistic or the love of our lives. And we constantly meet adversity. But what is that? What is adversity? What is it that's stopping us? What is it that we're blaming things on everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
But what needs to be seen? What needs to move?
It's a very deep question. Yeah. How do you answer that one shortly? Your point about the ego is very well taken and very accurate. So if you stop and go back into the space of what you understand the ego to be, the ego is born out of what? Born out of pain, born out of victimization, born out of the space of feeling like it is worthless. And the ego, for as hard as it struggles to create a space where it feels good about itself and even hopeful that it can achieve more, do more, be more, and hopeful that it will ultimately rejoin God in its concept of what has to happen. At the same time, subconsciously, it's always working to make sure that that doesn't happen. because in order for the ego to stay comfortable with itself, it has to continue to perpetuate its own story. And there is only one story playing out, but of course it looks different in different people's lives and all that. But the bottom line of it is that the ego feels incredibly insecure. It feels, it has like next to no self-worth whatsoever. And it will struggle to feel good about itself. It'll find places where it can feel good about itself and then put all of its focus there, or run away from other things, or we were saying earlier, where it doesn't feel good about itself because it has preference for one over the other. But the one thing that it doesn't want to do is it doesn't want to look deeper and go, oh, why does that always, it always goes full circle. It starts here, it seems to be getting better, and then it tanks and it comes back down here again. And after I've seen this happen over and over and over again, it's so easy to judge out here, blame out here. But the bottom line is you've got to look at what perpetuates the cycle and where does it emanate from? And of course it emanates right from here. Yeah. And at that point, and this is a very deep teaching. It isn't this simple. I wish it was. Yeah. There are aspects of this work that are so incredibly simple that when you're in the moment, you can't believe you never saw it. Other things do feel very difficult to attain as far as the understanding of it. But that cycle, it always comes back on itself, you know. And you have to be able to get in the space where you go, what am I doing that I subconsciously, even unconsciously, feel that I have to perpetuate the same story that continues to bring me pain and that continues to bring me the sense of suffering that I sit in. And the bottom line of it is when you can get under it and you can bring it to light, if you can bring the story of all of it to the light, and then surrender to it from that space, now you've given the universe an opportunity to do something with it that actually could shift the situation. But people don't want to get under it because it's scary, you know, because you're pushed to admit something about yourself that you don't like the looks of, right? Mm-hmm. And if that piece wasn't there, then there wouldn't be any resistance. There wouldn't be any need to create a problem. Even the whole concept of what is our highest potential, you know, what does that mean? You know, and what does your highest potential look like versus my highest potential, you know? And where is one preferable to the other? Because maybe your highest potential is you could have been a rocket scientist, you know, right? Maybe my highest potential was I could have been you know, a mother of 3 and a farmer, and like that was going to be it. Is one better than the other? Well, of course not. Of course not. But of course we live in a society that values intellect, and it values material wealth and jobs that bring material wealth, and so it's very easy to fall into that whole belief system where we get stuck in that I'm not living up to my highest potential. And then you use it as something just to continue to feel bad about yourself over. Is it true for most people that they're not living up to their potential? Well, of course. Of course. But until you can get in there from a very personal place and begin to recognize how you're the one who's keeping yourself from doing it, not anybody else, it's just you. Even if it looks like, and you can come up with all the reasons why it is out there, you know, you still have to recognize that at a very fundamental level, you brought it to yourself. You brought it to yourself because you needed the experience of it. And it's because the experience of it is going to bring you that additional piece of wisdom that then will give you the opportunity to move further. So it's all you.
Can I just jump in right quick?
Please do.
Because it's very interesting. Someone else was just telling me the other day that said, I'm just having a day. Well, what does that mean? This went wrong this morning, this went wrong after that, this went wrong this afternoon, and now this is going wrong. So I'm having a day. It's like when it rains, it pours, or, you know, it's all these things are happening to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so when you're kind of spiraling in that, it's hard to say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm creating this. Because first and foremost, what I have noticed in my experience is that when I actually notice myself saying, "Ugh, when it rains it pours," then I can actually see how I'm actually wanting it to continue.
Yes.
Or that I'm predicting it to happen, and because I'm predicting it, then it does happen. So it's, how do you get yourself, and I know you're going to say there's no A, B, C, or D steps to take, but how do you get yourself from stopping that cycle? Because I think the cycle in general can make someone say, okay, well, that's what is stopping me from living my full potential. Or today I was supposed to be able to do all these things, but I couldn't because this came to me and stopped me from doing it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I guess the greater question is, so what's the problem?
I hate when she does things like that.
But isn't that that's the truth, though? What's the problem? I was supposed to do this today, but this thing came and it stopped me. Okay, and so what would I say? I would say, well, obviously it was supposed to. And you will, how can you say that? Well, easy. Because it happened. And to think that there's anything going on that's outside of exactly what's supposed to happen in any given moment is crazy. Because that's the only thing happening is exactly what is supposed to happen. There's nothing outside of that.
But in the moment, you're thinking that you have control over it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So
The only thing that you would have control over is your inner state of where you're viewing it from. Yeah.
mm,
Because I can't tell you how many times I'll go through a day and all of these things are happening and I'm laughing through the whole day. Because what are you gonna do? Oh, yep, that just broke, and you laugh about it. Okay. Next challenge, next challenge, next challenge, and you just keep moving. Yeah. It's not out to get me,
mm.
you know.
But I can see how that is something that people can expand upon and use their life as a means for justifying why they can say, well, I didn't hit my full potential because of this or that.
Right.
And
Well, you know why? It's because ownership is hard. Ownership is so hard. And it is one of the biggest challenges for anyone who does very deep inner work, whether it be just psychological work or spiritual work or however you want to term it. When you get to the place where you really have to start recognizing that the onus for all of it lays right here, it's hard. You know, where in you do you want to really have to own your part in hurting people that you love, or in setting up situations where you set up a situation specifically to lead another person to do a certain thing so that then you could blame them for doing it. And everybody does it, and you're saying, no, I don't. And yes, you do. Everybody does it. It's outside of your conscious awareness, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you do it. And that's the component that's so hard for the ego, the personal self. It's one thing to witness something that is running on a conscious level, right? It's one thing to see it and own it. It's a completely other thing to go into the level where you're unearthing stuff that you're not even conscious of. And where does it show up? It shows up out here, right? And it shows up in all those things that you're judging and all those things that you're placing blame on. Those are you, and those are the aspects of you that unconsciously you do not want to look at, much less own as yourself. So how many people walk in the street, are going to do that level of work where they're going to jump in and go, oh, that really ticked me off when he said that to me. Why? What did it trigger in me, and why do I want to blame him for it? You know, and in my blaming him, to recognize that if I turn that back on myself, that there's a level of me that recognizes that I'm guilty of whatever that is, and now I have to find it and own it. Finding it isn't just enough. We have to own it, yeah? And then in the ownership of it, now we have an opportunity of now going out in the world and functioning from a different place. And that's where it truly shifts, right? Is how you walk it out in the world. Because I've said over and over, just seeing something is not enough to dissolve it from a pattern. Just seeing it is not enough. It's what you do with it after you've seen it that makes all the difference in the world. You can see something, and I have students that I have worked with who have all of the mental understanding you would ever need for this lifetime and the next. You know, they've taken all the classes, they've read a bazillion books, they've, studied here, studied there, sat with this guru, did this, did that. Great. What do you do with all of that stuff, right? You could have another person who's never had any contact with anybody with any understandings, who's actually functioning from a Christed level in the world, because it's all about what they're doing in the world and where they're functioning from in the world. Your mental understanding means nothing if you're not going to apply it. So there are all these layers to get to where you're asking me, how do you do it? I wish it was as simple as, well, you just go in and uncover the unconscious level of what's going on. Duh, right? I wish it was so simple. It's unconscious for a reason. It's unconscious because you're absolutely repulsed by it. And if you're repulsed by it, let's say you're repulsed by cockroaches, are you going to willingly walk into a house infested with cockroaches and spend the night or, do whatever? Well, no. And that's what I'm asking you to do on a level. Here's this thing that terrifies you. Let's jump in there and swim in it. And so it's so much easier to just go through life placing blame out here, because it allows us to feel sorry for ourselves. It allows us to just revel in our own victimhood. I have one student that I joke with her about it, you're the best victim ever. And she'll own it. I'm the best victim ever. And we've made it a joke, because that literally, even though you would, and she would have said at the time, but I don't want to feel like this. And I'd say, oh, that's rubbish. Of course you do. Because if you didn't, you would have changed it. Yeah? Well, but I can't. Oh, come on. Anything else in the world, it'd be like, I can't drive a car, right? Oh, okay, because you have a physical incapacity, like you physically can't. No, I've never learned how to drive a car. You really want to drive a car? Yeah. Okay. So what do you have to do? I guess I have to learn. Okay. Duh. And there's a way to do that. Well, the mind isn't any different, But there has to be this beyond a willingness, like a commitment to trudging through it, because it's not fun. It's not fun work.
Yeah.
But in the pain that you actually have to move through to uncover all of the stuff that's been hidden and to bring it to the light, it's beautiful, because the other side of it is freedom. The other side of it is peace, and a sense of inner contentment that you had never known before, other than maybe in small pieces. And, so would you rather live with, and I think of it this way, would you rather live with a duller level of pain that never goes away, and it's steady throughout the entire course of your life, knowing that you're just going to turn around and come back in and stay in the same pain? Or would you rather unearth the pain, and maybe it's going to feel a little worse in spurts, not all one time, it comes in spurts, but on the other side of it, it's done, and you never have to revisit it again. To me, where I sat, it was a no-brainer. when I hit the floor and I was at that level of pain, I didn't care what I had to do. I just didn't care. You know, I figured it's this bad. How much worse could it get?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. How much worse could it get? And if there's a chance that I have to stay in the pain, but I could come out the other side of it a different being altogether, then it would be worth it to me. And that's where I sat. And that's really the component that's required of anybody who wants to achieve liberation. And that's, you know, a spiritual kind of concept that we throw around. But really, if you just think of it as liberation from your pain, then that's enough. You know, and that is the thing that keeps people from reaching their potential, is the pain they carry. Right? Because the pain you carry dictates everything going forward, right? So if time is a concept of the mind, and time is created linearly by recalling past experience and then projecting out the most likely future based on that past experience, if you carry the pain, there's only one thing that's ever going to happen, right? Because your reference point isn't changing.
I don't think people really can conceptualize that or believe that. I mean, I have had deep conversations with people who they don't really understand, okay, well, what could the other side be? And what I have said from my own personal experience is that as crappy as the ride might have felt in the moment of me owning what I didn't want to see of myself, in the end, what I got was liberation and a sense of freedom and lightening, and as if I was coming into who I am.
Yes.
It wasn't this whole, Megan goes through the world and she's so angry and she's always experiencing deep pain. The world is against her. She's depressed. She's this, she's that. I wasn't so identified with that because I was actually able to see that that's not me. It doesn't even have to be me.
Right.
And, you know, you have to get to a point where you're like, I'm going to take the reins and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for some people, that's very difficult. And so someone who's also very dear to me, when you pose that to him, it's like he doesn't even believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And all he sees is him being the victim.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the world is against him.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and it's funny, it can work in the exact opposite as well. People either, when you bring the concept to someone that, you know, there is work that can be done. You know, here you are in your life, and here you are, here's your pain, here's your suffering, and here's all the baggage you're carrying that you say you don't want anymore. And here's an alternative, right? So your alternative is this. And for some people, it's exactly that. I don't believe it, you know. Mm-hmm. And I to the point where I can't even put like an iota of hope into it to that would maybe carry me through some of it. I can't even go there, like nothing, yeah. And then other people will do the exact opposite. They'll throw all their hope into it and all of the expectation that sits there about what it means. What does liberation mean? And they fill their heads with, you know, you have to remember that anyone who has gone beyond as far as functioning from the level of the personal self, it is fully experiential. So you use language to point to an experience that exists outside of the capacity of language, and you're limited in that, you know. So the downside is when someone shares their experience of, you know, enlightenment, what it ends up doing is just filling your head with more concept. Mm-hmm. And now you're chasing this thing that, you know, it's ridiculous, actually. And in the moment of moving there, you see all of it and you understand all of it, but you also laugh at how you held the concept yourself for however long you did, But there are so many people who get really hung up in, I'm a seeker, and so I'm looking for the divine experience of blah blah and whatever it is, and they're so immersed in that they're completely blinded to the suffering that they're still sitting in their daily life. They're just trying to cover it up with this whole, I'm going to find God, and and that's true, and it takes this fire within to literally carry you through. I mean, most people who even very seriously desire liberation won't achieve it. Most won't. I mean, that's just the reality of it. It is a path that is an incredibly difficult one from start to finish. But that doesn't mean you can't move yourself in a lifetime to go so far, where really the life is one of joy and peace and an amount of liberation within that. And these people are so stuck on the end goal that they remain clueless as to what to do here, And as you said to me earlier, I'm Megan until I'm not. Yeah. And you're here in this world until you're not. So you can be here to master the world. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And honestly, as a guide, that's what I use as my barometer. All my students will tell you, like, I'll ask from time to time, so how you doing? How are you? Just a little text, how are you? What's going on? And when you hear from people what's going on in their life and in their world, it gives you a direct barometer concerning where they are in their spiritual work, because the reality is, as you go in and you're uncovering things and you're working through them and seeing through them, your life changes.
Yeah.
Not because you're trying to change your life, but because when this component back here, remember I talked about past, future, when this component back here no longer holds any weight, now it opens it up for new things to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Different things to happen, and the shifting to take place, and the pattern doesn't have to stay. And ultimately, even if the pattern does stay, it wouldn't matter to you. Because when you move that deeply to where there's no preference, it really wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
There's no burning desire for, let's say it's a financial thing, here's where I am, here's where I want to be. Honestly, you reach a place where you've moved beyond the ego, what are you going to have? Money, no money, It doesn't make either one right or wrong. It doesn't make anything. It is what it is. It doesn't mean it, and this is where I have to be careful, because the mind takes that and it goes, oh, okay, so in order for me to be liberated, I have to decide that I'm poor today and it's good and we can stay that way. And that's not what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with wanting to earn more money. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You have to be careful how you hold everything. Yeah.
So, it's okay to say, oh, I would like to have that, but there's no attachment to what you would like to have.
Sure.
It's like that.
Yeah, and to say, oh, wouldn't that be nice to have that? That really would be. That'd be great. But maybe you decide that it's something you desire enough that you will go out and make the extra money to get it, right? Or maybe it's just one of those, it would be great, and if it shows up, great, and if it doesn't, that's okay too. And won't you be surprised the day that it does show up? Because that happens. I've gotten several pieces of furniture just like that. Never expected them. You just kind of put it out there. I think I need that, and that would be great. And, in several cases for me, within a week, it literally showed up. And, oh, fantastic,
Yeah.
And, but that's it. It's because whether I have it or not, it doesn't alter me, right? Yeah. It doesn't alter where I'm functioning from. I'm not going to, if I want a coffee table, if I'm going to walk by my living room sans coffee table every day, frustrated that I don't have a coffee table, obviously there's an attachment. And the attachment is focused on lack, and it's focused on what I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's suffering in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every day you're sitting in it. Every day you're sitting in it. But there's nothing wrong with walking through the living room one day and going, it'd be really nice to have a coffee table. And that thought moves, and, I didn't create the thought. There it is. I witnessed it, and there it goes. Oh, yeah, I guess it would. So there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And one shows up. Oh, fabulous. Now I have a place to put my coffee. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not, that's not an easy thing to move into, that space. A lot has to come first before and this is the thing. So many spiritual seekers, they want, well, I'll use you as an example. Give me the ABC or the 1, 2, 3, right? Just give me the order, the exact order, so I can memorize it, and I'll do it. Yeah, and I would have been the same way. And good students are like that, right? So, but that's just not how it works. Your journey is like an everyday, moment by moment thing, and it doesn't. People make it far more complicated than it needs to be. And but some people don't complicate it enough because they don't they don't give it the attention it does deserve. Yeah, and so even when they're given specific directive from someone that their level of wisdom is worthy of respect, they still won't. They won't listen, or they won't take the opportunity to do it, and that's fine. Everyone's journey is their journey. They'll have another opportunity. And it just continues like that. It's like on one side, I don't want to scare people. I thought about this earlier. I thought if we do a video, I'd love to put it out there, because most of my videos, I feel like they end up being like, whoa, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm ready for that level of work, And but the component you don't see is you don't see all the laughter involved in the work, and all the joy that actually is part of the work. That's a beautiful component of having a guide work with you, that when you're in the space where nothing truly is taken seriously, it's very fun. Yeah. Now it doesn't mean when you're sitting in your story of poor me that's fun, right? But when you come out of it the other side and you've got your guide there and you can laugh about what you saw and you see it from a completely different place, it is fun. It is fun, and it doesn't have to be heavy and all of that. But there are times where it does have to be heavy, right? Mm-hmm. And it all of it takes place. And this is the thing I see. I've seen seekers, they get really bogged down on, this guru said that, and I'm supposed to do this, and you have to be a vegetarian, or you have to, like, all of these things, right? And none of it's true. None of it. It does, but again, it doesn't negate any of it either, right? For a certain path that you might follow, where they would require that you be vegetarian, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, yeah. And for another path where they require that you meditate 4 to 6 hours a day, there's a reason for that too. And I'm not going to negate any of that, but I'm going to say it's not necessary ultimately, right? Mm-hmm. Because anything conceptually, and you're seeing this, anything conceptually that you hold, even when it comes to spirituality, all of it has to be dropped at some point. That's why the spiritual teachings on the planet, and the organizations, I have to be careful how I say this, the organizations that are out there teaching, they don't take the student to enlightenment. Mm-hmm. Because, almost all of them hold components that are purely conceptual that have to be dropped.
Yeah, because you still identify with those.
That's right.
Concepts, and you don't even see them as a concept. You just, because I can speak to this personally, you you kind of believe them to be who you are and who you need to be or how you need to act in order to reach enlightenment.
Right.
And that in itself is limiting.
That's right, but necessary, right?
Okay,
As,
yes,
as we
necessary,
said.
but-
So there is a time and place where that is necessary and required, because without it, as I was saying to Megan earlier, like there's this chasm between where you start and this, what you perceive as your end point. And in order to do this, all this stuff has to take place in here, right? And there comes a point where you get through all of this and you're over here and you have a moment of, wait a minute, what I'm seeing here doesn't necessarily seem to line up with all of this, and ooh, what do we do now? And it creates all this doubt and confusion and all this beautiful stuff. Well, you had to go through all of this to get to that point, and that point is a beautiful point to get to. And the point to be made at that point, right, is that this was necessary. And being here and having this level of understanding starting to come in now doesn't negate this, because that's what mind will want to do with it. Oh, so this is it. So now I throw all that out. No, it doesn't mean you throw it out, right? You witness where it was required and how it was helpful, and you honor it for what it is, for the truth that it is, within the realm of truth that it is in. Yeah. But from here, that may not be your truth anymore,
Yeah.
And that's what happens with the seeker. So the guru gives out all this stuff, and then they're holding it all as capital T truth, right? Now they come up on that spot, and if they hold it that tightly, they'll never do it. Yeah. It'll stop them every time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, truly, to the, I will speak to this. It can occur to the point where literally what your own guide or guru, whatever you want to call them, has said to you about their personal experience of a moment of awakening, even that can be utilized to convince you that you haven't experienced it yourself.
Yes.
And I have had that. I had that happen. The moment had come and gone. It was done. But I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it because it didn't look like what I thought it was supposed to look like.
Is it because you had an idea in your head what it should look
That's
like?
right. That's right. Oh, yeah. And like I said, you're using words to point to something that words, they have no place there, right? So whatever it is that, in my case, my guide said to me and the specific words that were used, I just kept looking back at that going, but it didn't all dissolve. The whole thing, it didn't all dissolve. It didn't disappear. It didn't disappear. And that literally, even though the experience had come and gone, right? But I kept coming back to that one piece going, ooh, I'm still waiting on that, still waiting on that, still waiting on that.
Yeah.
Until another experience comes where it just blew everything up. And then the only thing left was laughter. Huge amounts of laughter. But that's what the mind does, and it does it with everything, It won't matter how many times I tell the student, this, but remember, it doesn't negate that. They'll do it anyway. They'll still hold that.
It's so easy to put yourself in a box.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, I kind of love what you're saying, I'm assuming that in the moment of enlightenment, you wouldn't, there is no box if you're beginningless and endless.
That's right.
There's no restriction.
There's no nothing. In everything
But
simultaneously.
Yeah, but that's so hard to
Right.
even imagine.
What do you do with that? That's right. And because that is, and it's you have to, it's this funny thing that we do. You have to point to these things because the seeker, it's kind of like the carrot before the horse, you know? It needs that thing out there to continue striving for, because the reality is, in the journey, you know, the journey's like this. It's not this, you know, casual stroll, right? It's just like you're climbing hills and going down into the valleys and trudging through the muck, and, you know, it's all of it. And if you don't have this thing out here to kind of focus on, you won't do it. It's that, you know, who wants to do that? People want to get drunk and, you know, watch movies and sports. They don't want to trudge through the hills and valleys of, you know, uncovering all the unconscious stuff that sits there in the collective. So we have to do that, but that's the downside to it. In doing that, when I say to you that in a moment you will know everything there is to know, and simultaneously you will know there is nothing to know. That is absolutely accurate.
But it sounds bonkers.
But it's going to confuse the hell out of you because it just doesn't make any sense, right? And then we laugh, you know. But the reality is, it's true. It is true. And when the experience is there, it makes perfect sense. But it can only make sense because that's the level of awareness that experiences it, yeah. And then those are the words that come because they most closely match the experience. So, but you can't hold it as, you know, until I understand that, I haven't arrived. I mean, the bottom line is no one arrives. You know.
That's what I've been fighting for. But I feel like I'm almost there.
Yeah. So we have this.
Like I have somewhere to go.
That's just it, you know, and but here's the thing, and here's where it's so tricky. Too many people want to take the understanding that there's nowhere to go and use it as their justifier for not doing anything.
Yes, I have experienced.
And I've seen that in the quote unquote spiritual community over and over and over again. You know, it becomes the benevolent justifier that allows us to continue to just hold on to all the stuff that we really could just shed, you know. But it's easier to go, well, none of this matters. None of this is real anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, because every great teacher out there is going to say this is all illusion, right? Oh, so if it's all illusion, none of it really matters anyway. Done. And I could say to you, yes, but no. Because from that level of awareness that's going to hold that, you're never going to understand that, much less experience it. So for you, it does matter. And for you, it is real. It's real until it's not. You're here until you're not, right? And that's true. We can't, you know, the mind is so good at being so subtle about going into these delusional states. And that's exactly what it is, you know.
I'm giggling because I have used that so many times. Something embarrassing would happen to me, like, it's not real anyway. Or I would do something wrong. Well, wrong in the sense that it might have hurt someone's feelings. And I'm like, well, it's not real anyway. So I've definitely used that as a justifier. And
yeah, and in using that as the justifier, it keeps you out of the space of your heart, where really in the moment you would have recognized that you hurt someone and you would have made it right, you know, and then let it go, rather than carry guilt and shame and all of that stuff. You make it right and you move on, you know. And that's a part of what I say, you know. It's actually very simple. It is very simple. What's stopping you from admitting when you mess up and doing what you can to make it right? And there's only one thing that stops that, and that's the ego, right? But in truth, it's a very easy thing to do. You know, when you're not so attached to your own story and you're not so invested in holding that story in place, it becomes incredibly easy to see where we've gone wrong, to see where we've made a mistake, and to rectify it. And let go and move on, you know. It's behind you and it's done. So anything else?
I think that's it. What you shared on Twitter really struck me just because I've been there.
Do you want to repeat it so people remember?
People come to me all the time saying they just want their pain to end, and then they fight to defend their pain to me. Ego needs the pain. And I can remember sitting there many times, and that's a little bit of a personal background. When I was younger, I just knew that this could not be it. And I would pray and pray and pray for God to take me away and free me from whatever I was in. And so that pain that I felt for so many years, it became who I was. And it defined me. So in approaching you and asking you to please take my pain away from me, save me, because you seem to be bringing a practical solution to the pain. And especially in the beginning, it was very hard for me to let that pain go. And I would defend my beliefs in why I was the victim. I never wanted to see that what I was seeing outside was actually created by me. And I don't know, I just felt like that pain created me in a permanent state of victimization. And it was almost in trying to let go of that pain, another way that I would defend it is that took me out of my comfort zone. Because I had defined myself as that for so many years, to even have you to say, well, Megan, look at this. And that was the first stepping stone for me to end that pain and reach, I call it liberation, freedom from bondage. That's what it felt like. It was stepping out of a comfort zone, and that was so difficult for me because that's stepping outside of me.
Right.
I believed myself to be that. So I understand when you say ego needs the pain. I would need that pain to continue to be Megan.
That's right.
I am Megan that carries this pain. I have this crappy life and whatever else, I associated with. So it really struck me because I remember sitting there and I do hope that what I want for everyone is that you can say, that's fine, and just keep walking that path to liberation and no longer feel that needs to be you.
Yeah, because the reality is you don't begin to experience yourself until all of that starts dropping away.
Yes, and that's what I was referring to earlier is that now I feel like I'm actually coming into me.
Yes, that's right, and it's absolutely true. And again, from a deeper level, and this is a really disconcerting thought, but it's accurate. The lower mind, the aspect of you that believes yourself to be your body and the thoughts and the feelings and beliefs and all that, is not conscious.
That's a hard one to put your head around.
It's not even conscious. So what you're looking at is moving through a world filled with unconscious beings running a program. That's why I love the whole Matrix analogy, comparison, because that is what it is. In the Matrix, they're plugged in and they're believing themselves to be living these lives and doing all these things, when in reality, the body's sitting over here because they are that body, right? Well, in truth, you aren't your body, but we can use the comparison because it works quite nicely. You're actually all of it, right? You're you're all of it, but perceiving yourself as this one identified body and mind, and all of that, all the things that identify you in the world, and then all the things that all the other aspects have identified as themselves in the world, and we all hold each other separate because we're identified just here, running on a program. And that's why within that there is no choice.
Yeah.
There's no choice. The program will do what the program will do. Now it can look like you're making the choice, but the program dictates the choice before it comes out of your mouth or before it comes through your actions. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, when the dissolution starts taking place, now there's choice there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can run with the program or it can choose not to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do something different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
That's
I
right.
see.
Now it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. How long have I been saying that?
It just clicked.
I see it. She saw the light, everybody.
I did. What also came is that free will then?
Yes.
'Cause
Yeah.
then that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. So within this
That's
paradigm,
beautiful.
you have free will.
That's yeah.
Well, yeah. And it's true. So if you look at, say, the masters or whatever, they can't impose on your free will. The program is free to continue the program as it likes. Outside of it, you are the will of God.
Mm.
You are that. And of course that's free. Yeah, but free will conceptually, it's true here, but it's really not happening, is it? Mm-mm. No.
And that's something hard to digest.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, just the whole.
I'm the one running.
It's very funny. I'll share with you a personal story. When I, on the very cusp of my journey, I became friends with this woman who was really into aliens and really into stuff that for me at the time was very out there, because I had been completely, I took all this time, I had 3 kids, and so I was completely out of the world of anything metaphysical or whatever for quite some time. So when I came back in, I met this lady and became friends with her. She was awesome, but she introduced me to a guy named David Icke that a lot of people know who he is. So a lot of, his work has changed an awful lot over the years. So this was back in '87. And a lot of his work at that time was all around the reptilians, You talk about a mind bender. For me, when I came into this work, this was like cake compared to what I went through there. When she brought the whole thing about reptilians to me, I was like that moment where you watch your whole world just go, oh my gosh, are you kidding? And fascinating. I don't spend much time there or anything, but that was my experience there. And that's the experience people have with this. When you get into the place, and I tell you, as a beginning student, when you get that first teaching, that your concept of who you are, your likes, your dislikes, your beliefs, your all of it, is a program. And thoughts aren't yours. You don't create them. It's not you, never has been, never will be. I mean, that literally turns people completely upside down, And those are, you really have to be at a certain place in your own evolution to be ready to go, that's the journey for me, right? Because a lot of people will hear that, and it's so outside of the realm of normality for them. They just can't, they just can't do that. They can sit in the space of, chanting mantras or, calling on the violet flame and do all this kind of stuff. But as far as considering that I'm not the author of my thoughts, oh, heavens no. That's too much. But that's where it has to go. You know, if you want to hold that you are the creator of the thoughts that run through your awareness, there is no walking out of that.
Yeah, it keeps you here
Oh yeah.
in the pattern.
Yep, completely identified.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and look at how much time we spend on monitoring our own thoughts. I mean, think about just that, you know, and all the self-help things out there. Now, remember, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm not saying it's wrong. From my level of work, I have to ask my students to go deeper than that. Is it true that for someone who's completely like mired in depression, that doing some basically repolarizing in how they in their thought process, is it true that that is a beneficial thing? Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. However, if you have a person who's, you know, coming to you and saying the only thing they want is to walk off the life-death cycle, guess what? Now you have to start moving through a deeper level and monitoring your thoughts at that point, other than to witness what's running so that you can go in and dissect the program, is pointless.
Yeah.
It's absolutely pointless. What's the point? I'm miserable, so I have to work really hard to get myself in a good place. Well, where do we even begin? First, it shows preference. One's better than the other. You're stuck. Right?
Yeah.
My thoughts are mine, so bad thoughts equal bad person, good thoughts equal good person. You know, you're just as identified there. You're completely stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And it all has to get ripped away, you know. And life will take care of that, which is the beautiful thing. You know, yes, you have a guide and you have teachings in place and you have kind of like a protocol to follow and all that, and that all assists. But life's going to bring you exactly what you need. It always does, you know. So if you're resistant and you refuse to budge, well, that's okay. Life will bring it to you. Life will make you budge. You won't have an option, and that's okay, you know. That's where choice does come in, yeah. Because at a level, you can start to make conscious choice. Not have it just be the programming making choices for you. And that's a beautiful marker of someone who's truly ready to do the work, is they aren't going to have the opportunity brought to them to make the choice to go deeper and then decide to dismiss it because it's too inconvenient or they don't have time to do it. Right? And if that's the choice that's made, because that's a choice, you know, non-action is a choice as well. And if that's the choice that's made, that's fine, but you're going to have to walk it out in the physical, and it's going to be uncomfortable. You know, if you're afraid of it being uncomfortable doing it here, oh, it's going to be far more uncomfortable dealing with it out there, I promise. Yeah. And to me, that's the marker of the seeker who's truly, truly ready to do the work, is they aren't going to depend on the world to bring them all the challenges. They'll take the opportunity to just dig from the inside and look for all that, because it comes up in the world everywhere, you know. And that's the beautiful thing about the world. It's going to give you, you know, it's this unconscious projection of the mind, and so it's going to bring all the stuff that you're hiding from yourself anyway, you know. And it doesn't have to come like a 2x4 to the head until you repeatedly push it away every time it comes to you for you to look at it, you know. And the reality is that the seeker who has signed up to do this level of work is expected to do the work, you know, when it comes. So you're given, you know, several opportunities, and if you don't do it, then something usually happens in your world where you have to, you know. And that, to me, that's a beautiful thing. It's not beautiful in the moment. It doesn't feel like it, but it is a beautiful thing. And anyone who's, and I have students of mine that, you know, have ended up there, you know, where life had to bring the lesson to them. And even for as challenging as that is on the side of it. There's always this sense of, I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had.
It's no longer personal.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And the less personal, it sounds so funny, the less personal your life becomes, the more you enjoy it. The more open you are to seeing through all of it.
Mm-hmm.
The more love you have to give and share,
Mm-hmm.
and the more open you are to receiving yourself, and everything, just when it's not personal anymore, it's like it just blows the doors off of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The personal parts, it's hard. Yeah.
It's very hard.
It's
especially in the beginning, it can be very difficult.
yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, in the beginning, just getting that momentum started is difficult, because it's always, it never fails. You have a student who shows up, and with a short time something will happen that's, it's like a big one they got to move through, but it's there because they can move through it, and you do, and then you get to the other side of it, and it gives you that first taste of, wow, like this is real.
Yeah.
You weren't kidding. This is real, and I can do this, right? It's beautiful. And so you get in this pattern of, challenge, and then it'll steady, kind of, what do I say, it becomes steady for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Challenge again, and things will be going good, and then huge challenge. And later there are moments, it seems, you'll be outside of the program for longer and longer stretches. And it seems from my own experience that that's when the challenges really do start coming. The things that you thought were really challenging in the beginning, once you've reached that point, you realize how minor they truly were. All right. At the time it seemed huge, but it's like, and then the challenges start coming. And you can speak to that. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Where the things where you truly have attached yourself have to come up to be looked at and to be seen through. And when it comes to attachment, that's hard work.
Oh, yes.
That's hard work.
It's like you're kicking and screaming.
Yeah, and like you literally witness it. Yeah. Don't do that. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I have to do that. But I have to do that. But you want to do that. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it is so necessary. And oftentimes that that work that you do there is a huge gift for the other as well.
Yes.
Yeah. In a way that you wouldn't have seen before, couldn't have seen before. But where you've held your own attachment, you also hold the other in bondage to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And in releasing yourself, it releases them, and it offers an opportunity for something greater.
Mm-hmm.
Or not, and that's okay too. Like whatever has to happen can happen. But better that you move forward from a different place than to stay stuck in the place you were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I had to ask myself in starting this work, I asked myself, what are you going to lose? Your unhappiness?
Yeah.
So you have to lose.
It's, and it's such a good point. In a sense, you have everything to lose, right? Because you're looking at the ego that's even coming as a seeker. It is the ego coming as a seeker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming as if it's going to sign its own death warrant, and which I think is great. You can look at it like Jesus going to the crucifixion.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
He walked to his death. He walked into it fully conscious of what he was doing, and that's what's required of all seekers. It doesn't mean it has to equate to your physical death,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what that represents: the death of the ego,
Mm-hmm.
The death of the personal self, the death of the program that is running everything, and on a level, it's the program itself that signs itself up
Yeah.
to end the program, which is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the program will always run. It is what it is. Yeah. but there's a time when you just no longer are that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that the ego has to die, it doesn't have to be annihilated, chopped into tiny pieces, because that's just to hold it polarized, right?
Well, this is also coming through, so if anybody watching is kind of nervous to take that first step, in one of my fears was the fear of losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my car? Am I going to lose my money? Am I going to lose people in my life? And I don't know if I got that from movies or something, where I thought, or my interpretation of the Bible, where I thought I'd have to lose everything and be poor. So that was one reservation that I had, is that I was afraid that I was going to not actually lose myself, but lose things out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when that whole thing of, well, what do you gotta lose? Your unhappiness? I mean, just go with it. But that was a huge fear of mine. It was a reservation.
Yes, and it is for most. And what they can't see is that it's the fear of losing it that is most likely to result in you losing it to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you come from the place of take it all, and there are seekers who come to that place, take it all, take my house, take my kids, take my husband, take my health, take whatever it is, I don't care. They don't have to lose anything because they've already given it up.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to lose it to give it up. And that's actually a very profound statement.
Yeah, if you really look at that.
Yeah, you don't have to lose it to give it up. But it's not a mind game. It's not okay, so I'll tell myself I'm willing to give it up. Because if I tell myself I'm willing to give it up, it means I won't have to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't work like that. Shoot. Yep. Yeah.
I actually did play that mind game.
I know you
myself.
did. Yeah.
I sure did. Well, if I do my work here, then I won't have to experience it out there.
Right. But that's not a bad thing either. You let the fear of that catapult you into going deeper here,
Oh, it did.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. But I remember the same. I remember in the beginning of my work too, I hit a place where, well, financially we were really struggling after we moved back down to Charlotte, and I remember having a lot of fear around losing our house, mostly because we had 3 kids, very small kids at the time. And my fear for them is, oh my God, they'll be homeless. I didn't care about myself so much, but for them, yeah. And that was something that, I definitely had to move through. Because what got presented to me over and over again was, okay, so, and what if?
Yeah.
And so what? So what if you were? What's the worst thing that can happen? And to get you to really start looking at that. Okay, is losing your house the worst thing that could happen to you? Really? And to begin to realize that you've created this world where you have all these things in place that you feel like you have to control and keep tabs on, and it's like, yeah, but you don't know. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the thing that you fear the worst could be the one thing that would bring the most. You've got no way of knowing that. So you gotta just learn to just let go of that aspect. I like having a house. Shelter's great. But to think that I know how it's supposed to be for me and all, you have to just relinquish that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't. I don't.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something, well, maybe because it's my own personal story that brought me to this, but I think that for many people that's important to understand. I mean, if you look at Job in the Bible, that's a beautiful story. But I don't know, I think that in and all of the justifiers, the reasons why mind comes up with for why you shouldn't do the work, it's the whole worldly aspect of it all that you're like, I don't want to go there.
Yep. Life may not be great here, but it could be a whole lot worse. You know, so why would I want to rock the boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's spoken like a true ego. I've gotten it just stable, you know.
Yeah.
And that's because the consciousness identified as ego remembers the experience that it had in the moment of its perceived separation. And that is a very traumatic thing that's held there, right? So it works double time all the time to just create something stable, even if it's mediocre. You know, it'll complain about it, it won't love it, it'll always hope for more and even strive for more, but it's not going to rock the boat too much, because if it got stable, it doesn't want to ruin that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do understand that.
But outside of that, from the space of true freedom, you know, it really wouldn't matter what was going on in the outside world and what it looked like. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't. So I was saying to my son, is in a German program, and he was talking to me. I can't even remember what we were talking about, but something came up about, I made a comment to him about finding the beauty in the world, in any situation, you know. And he's like, you know, he's 16, almost 16, so he's at the space, he loves to question me all the time. He recognizes I'm not your average mom, you know. So he's always throwing these questions at me. He's like, so you mean to tell me that there would be someone that in the middle of the concentration camps in Nazi Germany, that they could find beauty in that? And I said, absolutely. I said, there are survivors of those concentration camps, and that's exactly the message they came out with for the world, was that the only way to survive was to find the beauty in that experience. That was the only thing that got them through it, you know. Find the beauty in the middle of hell, to find the beauty. Yeah. And of course that's the heart that can find that there, and that is the whole point, you know. The whole point, when it comes down to it, people always ask, you know, how do you explain what you do and this and that, and really to keep things extremely simple, because what we do does seem very complex and convoluted and all that. But to keep it very simple, I mean, the whole point is that you here as an identified human being are living in a space where predominantly you are in pain. And it may be low-grade pain, and it's so low-grade that you're not even conscious of it anymore. But that's where you function from, and that's where humanity functions from. And from that space, you really can't live from your heart. And there are moments where you do, and there are people that you do connect with on a heart level, and you have those experiences, but you aren't living in that space on a daily basis. And that's the point of the work. The point of the work is, at the end of the day, to come to a place where you're okay with what is, yeah? You love unconditionally, not because Scripture taught you you're supposed to, but because it has become natural to you, and that's worded incorrectly, because you've rediscovered that is your natural state, yeah, and you don't sit in the space of judgment. Yeah, judging something is fine, but it doesn't keep you from loving. You know, whereas the human will judge and use the judgment as the thing to, you know, constrict their heart and to withhold their love. And it's ridiculous. It does not have to happen that way at all. But people can't get there until they've done all the work here, you know. And that's the point. It is hard, and it is complex, and it confuses the mind and all of this stuff, but it's a very simple premise,
Mhm.
you know, what we're doing here. And any great path is the same. You know, the end result is always the same place. So, yeah.
That was excellent.
Yeah. So we done? Are we done?
Yeah. Thanks for watching us. If you like us, give us a thumbs up and follow us on Twitter, Facebook. What else are we on?
Instagram. I think.
Instagram. I always forget about that one.
The website, kumaracenter.org.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah, definitely follow us. There'll be more to come.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.